Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bonus Points podcast. I am your host, Joe Garrett, as always being joined by Ollie Guy.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Ollie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, mate. I don't normally get a welcome.
Well,
No.
I always struggle with this because you've mentioned about this before. Normally I don't really like the beginning small talk too much because, we've just been chatting for ages.
Yeah.
And it feels weird me going oh, how are you? And it's like, well, I know you. I've been, chatting to you all day. But I'm it seems rude if, I don't let you say so. So what would you prefer? Do you want me to ask how you're doing every podcast?
Yeah, because sometimes I line something up and I never get a chance to say it.
Oh, and I brush past too quick.
Yeah, but today I haven't got anything lined up. So
You haven't got anything to
brush
show
past.
us.
You can brush past today.
Okay, well, I guess I'll go straight into what game we're playing. So this was my choice of game. It is Enslaved Odyssey to the West.
Yes. Would you like me to read the synopsis or would you like to tell me why you picked it?
Well, read the synopsis first, and then I'll talk about why I picked it.
Right, okay. So, Enslaved Odyssey to the West is an action-adventure video game developed by Ninja Theory and published by Namco Bandai Games. Announced in 2009 as Enslaved, it was released on PlayStation 3, Xbox 360... Oh, sorry, I thought it was going to be more than that. PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in 2010. As a loose adaptation of the novel Journey to the West, the game is set 150 years in the future in a post-apocalyptic world following a global war. That's
okay.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I chose it was I just heard it had really good reviews, and I never played it, and it just kind of seemed to be the thing I always like picking, which is kind of cult classic games that kind of didn't seem to get their just rewards when they first came out. I also remember when I mentioned to you about doing Enslaved, you seemed quite excited or just quite happy.
Yeah, so I've also always wanted to play it, and I really like Hellblade. So I've never played any of your other Ninja Theory's other games. So
you haven't played DMC?
I forgot they made that. I've played about an hour of it.
You weren't a fan.
I can't stand Devil May Cry games because all of them have got horrible music. I can't stand the music. And then if you turn the music off, you lose half of the game. So all of those action games have got the worst music I've ever heard. It's like death metal with keyboards.
The newest one, was it 5? That
Yeah.
one is probably the worst in terms of music, isn't it?
Yeah, so I just DMC, no thanks. Sorry.
Okay, so you kind of give an idea of what the game is. I guess in terms of gameplay, I guess you'd call it platformer, action adventure with combat. Would that kind of be the best way to give someone an idea of what it's like?
I would say Uncharted meets Horizon, but put your expectations down here. That's how I would describe it.
Okay, you're kind of showing your hand a little bit early on then. So do you want to go into gameplay or story first? Because I feel like they're very separate entities with very different levels of kind of, I guess, competence. I guess.
Yeah.
So what would you want to go into first?
Well, let's have a look. Let's set it up with the story, I think.
Okay.
Would you like to do the honours, my friend?
Oh, it set up the story of the game?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's based on a Chinese novel, which was called Journey to the West. Had you read that, or did you know of that story before?
I knew of it in as much as when they said the guy's name was Monkey, I was like, oh, it clicked for me that what they were doing. Yeah. That was the giveaway for me.
This is their second adaptation of that book. Did you know that?
Oh, what? It's Ninja Theories.
Yeah, they had already
I didn't know that.
done an adaptation in a game called Kung Fu Chaos. There is a character who's the monkey with the headband, but it's an actual monkey. That is also based on the same book.
No, and I've played that game, so I have played more than just Hellblade and DMC after all.
I only found out I've been watching some videos about the game and old reviews and stuff, and in one of them they mentioned about that as well. And I was like, because I used to love Kung Fu Chaos or the mini games in it.
Same. Man, I love that game a lot. And I did play it reasonably recently, and it's rubbish. So
yeah, no,
as a kid, I loved it.
So obviously, it is an adaptation of this book, but it seems to be as light a possible of an adaptation. Like, this book's obviously, it's hundreds of years old, this book, and this is set in the future with robots, and the main character's called Monkey rather than being a monkey, and basically a lot's changed, but they kind of took the general idea of kind of this headband and controlling someone and going on a long journey. So the game's opening I thought was pretty great. So it starts off as kind of a slaver ship. There's the main character Monkey, who you play as, and then I wouldn't even call it your sidekick. You're like Trip, the person who you're journeying with throughout most of the game. You both kind of escape, and then it's quite a dramatic scene where you're escaping. I think they do a really good job of setting up all of the characters and the world really quickly and interestingly during a really action-packed sequence. But basically it turns out that Trip has put a headband on you. She needs to get back to her home, and this headband means she can basically control you, and if you get too far from her or she dies, then you die as well, and so you're kind of being forced to help her out, and you're not very happy about it. Does that kind of set it up all right?
I would say that is their intended setup. Yes, that's what I would say they're going for.
Oh, but what do you think?
Well, I don't really know if Monkey's into the idea, if he's against the idea, if he's meant to be a brute, or if he's meant to be clever. I don't really. He was like every single thing he did was conflicting in every single way possible. Like, he's meant to be this super strong guy, and then he's like, "Oh, I don't want to go with you," and then there's a bit where she's talking about taking the headband off, and he's like, "No, don't do it." And it's like, well, did you like it or not? Like, I don't understand. Also, you're meant to be like living in this world where you're kind of the alpha predator, this guy, Monkey, and yet he can't get his way out of this little situation, but he knows how to destroy robots in 3 seconds. It's just like,
see,
I don't know.
The way it played out in my head was that rather than him being like not consistent, I kind of thought that he changed like throughout it, because at first I thought he was like, I just want to get out of here, like, this is, you've put this headband on me, I didn't want you to, and he wants nothing to do with it. But then I kind of get the idea that he didn't have much going in his life before this. Like, she had a home and a family and all of her friends and this community, and I feel like he doesn't have any of that. He's just been roaming on his own, and then like he's forced into this situation to travel with her, and first he doesn't like it because just want to be roughing it by myself, and then eventually he kind of likes the companionships and maybe like likes having a goal, and he gradually changes throughout the game.
I don't know if it was gradual or if it was just like in the first 10 minutes.
I mean, it's
because he starts like, it has so many unearned emotional moments in the opening. It's like, I don't care about these characters. I don't know who they are. I don't even know if this girl's going to stick around like for longer than the first 10 minutes. And he's like, having all these heartfelt situations with her, and he's only just met her. It's like, I thought you hated her. Like,
what are heartfelt situations?
Like when she's worried about hiding in the thing, and he's always like, "Oh, wait there, I'll come and save you." And it's all like, they're talking about how the fish were starting their own ecosystem, and it's all this thing, and it's all within like the first hour, and it's like, but he's supposed to hate her and be under her like control.
Yeah, I guess it's the turn is maybe a little bit too quick, but it's like, it's a pretty compact story, and they didn't. It's not like if there was a TV show, I'm sure it would be much more gradual, the change. But I think it's sort of like he just realized that he's got no choice, so he's kind of making the best of it. And then eventually he's like, you know what, this is what I have now with her is better than what I had before. Like, I actually kind of want to stick with it. I really thought they were going to be setting up to her saying that, like, you know what, the headband didn't matter anyway, and like it would have never killed you. I really thought they were setting up for that, but they're like, nope, she's just quite horrible.
I thought it was either going to be the headband didn't matter, or that the woman was a robot. I was like, it's going to be one of those two things. I don't, because one of the DLC is called Sexy Robot Trip. So I was like, robot. Like, maybe it turns out she's a robot.
But do you know what that DLC actually is?
Isn't it just like she's got some metal bits on her?
No, it's there's another character later on called Pigsy that they meet, and it's him trying to find robot parts to build himself a wife. That's what it is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But no, they do a DLC. There's a DLC costume for Trip, which is called Sexy Robot Trip. So I was like, well, maybe she's a robot then, if
Or maybe it's just they want to do whatever they can to sell something, and that's what would sell. So, it sounds like I kind of enjoyed the story a bit more than you. In terms of the production values of the cutscenes, and I think the acting is all pretty solid. Do you disagree?
The voice acting is pretty good. The facial animation is like pretty good even now. So back then it must have been really good. But yeah, I don't know, man. And I didn't really think it was all that.
But and there is more, like, especially for games of that age, there's more subtlety than I'd expect. Like, so there's the first part where, like, you go and just slaughter a bunch of robots, and it's quite brutal when you do it, and it cuts to close-ups of his face, like growling and stuff. And then there's a cutscene with her afterwards, and it's just like her reaction to, like, oh god, who am I? Who have I just trapped with me? But she doesn't say anything, and it's just like a subtle facial expression, which which doesn't sound crazy today, but that sort of like subtlety and acting was kind of very rare back in the day.
Yeah, I do feel like there was quite a big jump across the entire game once you get through Tripp's village. So once you start hanging out with Pigsy, it seemed like the cutscenes were better, the writing was better, the acting was better, the gameplay was kind of the same, but the other stuff was all much better. I feel like that third character really added a lot. Something they needed to like bounce, someone they needed to bounce off, because they're both pretty awful. Like, you're just hanging out with them, they're both quite like bad people and quite annoying.
But like Pigsy's pretty awful as well.
At least he's funny. He looks funny as well.
Do you want to kind of describe Pigsy for audio listeners?
Yeah, he's just like this big fat guy who has like half a pig, like mechanized pig hat on with like a snout and one pig's ear, and he's got like a trotter, and I think he's sort of got like a little tail going on of like mechanical, and he's like covered in tattoos, but like he thinks he's like God's gift to the earth and God's gift to women as well. So.
Yeah, and he's always trying to like flirt with Tripp, and it's kind of almost feels like it's setting up like this awkward love triangle. But it also, I think there's some of the cringier scenes with him when they try to do like full-on comedy. And it's like the long pauses and the awkward stares and stuff. But I feel like you can see what they're going for. And it's not outright bad, but it's like it's never funny, but it's trying so hard to be funny. It's just a little bit cringy, and I'm just sort of like, okay.
There was one cutscene that did make me laugh, and it caught me off guard as well, because up to that point I was not laughing at all. But it was when Monkey and Pigsy had to share a grappling hook.
Okay,
and they're like both going down together. They're both literally like face to face. Like neither of them are saying anything. They're just like going down their bodies, like rubbing up against each other. But yeah, that I was like, oh, maybe like this is going to turn around. But it didn't.
And then there is the scene where they're riding off in the boat, and they're like, Pigsy's all really jealous of Monkey because like he's obviously better than him in every way. Yeah. And then like he looks back, and it's like Tripp and Monkey's just standing next to each other, but like the like machinery in the background lines up to make a heart, and it's like okay, that wasn't very subtle anyway. But then they also just like fade over like a pink overlay, just in case someone didn't notice it. And he's like grumbling about it. I'm really glad that they didn't fall in love though, because I was just waiting for them to kiss or whatever, and I'm like, that's just like the cliche. Like for a while, it felt like every game it just had to have two attractive white people that fall in love, was just like every single video game. And I'm glad that like this game didn't feel like it needed to do that.
What did you think of throughout there was like those flashbacks? Would flash up pictures of Andy Serkis on his holiday.
Yeah, so when we say this, like Andy Serkis, if you don't know, most famous from I guess Gollum, now obviously accomplished director and writer. So you find things throughout the game, and it's kind of memories that Monkey's experiencing through this headband. Tripp doesn't see them, and it's real life pictures, not computer graphics, of just obviously pictures that he just had anyway, of like of him at places, or just like a field or a building or something.
It's so
or like
funny.
or one of the first one was in like an office building, and I'm like, well, that's obviously just like the team's like development studio's office. Unless a game is fully going in as in this is like a full motion video game. Yeah. Like I hate it when it's a computer graphics game and then they have like real life actors or pictures. Like I don't know about you, like I hate that.
Yeah. It does make me cringe a bit. But I spoke to a friend of the show, Chris, about this, and he was like, maybe when it came out, Andy Serkis wasn't as recognizable as he is now. because like for me, every time I come on the screen, I was like, it's Andy Serkis. Like it's like him, like in a bar, like with his. It's literally like you have the biggest fight of your life. You've never seen a monster like it, and then a picture flashes up of Andy Serkis, like. It's just like, what is happening?
It's jarring because of how normal the pictures are. Like, they don't look like a pose. Like, these don't look like stock photos or like posed with like studio. It just looks like, oh yeah, let me go down my camera roll.
Yeah,
that one.
Facebook album. Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally what it looks like. And then you're in this really fanciful world of all these robots, and then all these pictures are kind of modern day. Yeah, it was done. And then the fact that they were almost like, they're the like secret collectible things. They're the things, go out of your way to explore the levels, and your reward is like 3 JPEGs of Andy Serkis at a party.
Yeah. And also they're really blurry. I don't really know why, because they shouldn't be that big, like it shouldn't take up that much memory, but they're like really pixelated when they flash up.
Well, I think because pictures like that do. Because we think about like, compared to everything in the world, but the textures are wrapped over things.
I suppose, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure if it was coming out today, it would be a 100 gig download and they wouldn't care. But
yeah.
I think
also
why.
on the graphics, like I thought the graphics, I looked at pictures of it and I was like, oh, this looks really cool. Like, it's going to totally do it for me. But then I felt like, actually seeing the game, it's kind of ugly. Like it's too bright and the edges are too sharp, and it's kind of like it almost is like difficult to pick things out the scenery because it's so sharp and so green that like even the handholds have to flash because you can't make anything out.
Even with them flashing, they're hard to find.
Yeah,
I found, or didn't find. I like colourful games. I like oversaturated. Like I like the old Halo games when like the elites were like glowing basically, and then they got all grimy and cool, and I like that. And then especially considering the game we had just played previously on the podcast, Killer 7, which was just so dark. And then now I've just started playing the game for the next episode, Last of Us 2, and it's all dark and real. Like, I kind of liked it. I think what you're saying about it, like, I think because you played it on Xbox, right?
Yep.
So we were both playing in 720p, and there's no, as far as I can tell, no anti-aliasing, which is obviously like kind of smooths over the jaggedy edges. There is a PC version that came out several years after the game's first release, and I'm sure you could probably put up the resolution there. And I really think, like, I don't think it would ever get one, and I don't know if they should even bother doing it because of how small of an audience it had first time. But a remaster with a solid 60 FPS in like 4K or even like 1080p would really do this game a world of good.
Yeah, I think it might be worth going into the gameplay before we talk about the performance and that, though. Like the graphical performance, not the acting. Okay.
Well, let's start with what I kind of thought was probably the strongest aspect of the gameplay, which was the combat. How did you find it?
I'd agree it was the strongest point. It was a bit easy. The whole game was kind of easy. And also the camera was just not the one at all. At any point, the camera was not working. It kind of just like, I don't know, man. The whole game just feels like a bunch of what would be okay ideas. Not like great ideas, but okay ideas, but executed really badly. Like, the game is falling over itself trying to do so many different things. And like the combat, it's got this like skill tree and everything, and you don't really need it. Like, the enemies are so stupid. You just hit them continuously or push them back if they get in the way.
Yeah. There's like weird things like, so say if you're hitting an enemy and they're blocking you, like, so I get it out of the way early. My comparison to Dark Souls is if they're blocking you with like a shield, you think if you switch to doing your weapon two-handed, that will break their stamina quicker and then you can hurt them. On this, you just keep hitting them until like they're not doing it anymore because you haven't really got like any options.
You've got the stun thing where you hold down the button.
Yeah, but by the time I feel like it takes a bit too long, that like charge up when they're like because there's some enemies. I'm not talking about the enemies that just have a shield constantly. I'm talking about the ones like a normal enemy that's just blocking. You just kind of keep hitting them until they stop hitting you. It's very much your standard of the era. You know, I knew what the controls for the combat would be before I did it. I knew where my light attack would be. I knew where my heavy attack would be. And, you know, you get a few extra moves, like kind of quick finishes. And there's a few kind of flourishes like certain enemies you got to kill before a timer goes down, or they'll call more enemies. Or probably I think the best one are enemies that you can kind of do a finisher move on, and then you kind of grab them and they're going to explode, and you can kind of aim them and throw them at other enemies to blow them up. Like stuff like that I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good idea, but like in practice, that grabbing enemies and throwing them to explode is like you grab the enemy, the camera gets too close, there's absolutely no animations, you're just literally sliding around, and then you kind of push them, and the enemy will like fall forwards and continuously fall forwards until it hits another enemy. So it's like could fall like 30 feet, just like, and it's just like, I don't know, like it just doesn't work. It's trying to do so many different things, and like we have, you know, we just mentioned the skill tree, but like the economy is just so mental. Like you can get hundreds of thousands of coins, or whatever the currency is, and then you go to spend them, but you can't because you're not near enough to your teammate Trip.
Yeah,
and you're not near enough to her for a story reason, so you just can't. Until she comes back, you can't upgrade. Like it just doesn't work. Like,
it's also the same because she heals you, and it's like, but you can only do that when she's close because she has to like inject you, and like and
it'll be like
near enough.
You choose her to inject you, and it'll be like she grabs you and injects you, and the camera will zoom in on like your pec because like it doesn't know what to do. So you watch the cutscene from like just this bit of your body going like, and there's the combat, and then the climbing. Sounds like Uncharted style climbing, but you can't die. So what you like, if you don't know what to do, you just spin the stick around and just keep mashing A, and he'll find where he needs to go because he won't go unless he's pointed at something. And like, despite the fact that the guy's called Monkey, like you can't even swing on ropes. Like, I didn't
you can kind of swing a bit off poles and stuff.
I know,
like,
but he should be like swinging tree to tree like a monkey. Like you can't do that. He's called Monkey. He doesn't even eat a banana.
I've got like a note here saying basically like they've got levels that have been designed as if this is a platforming game.
Yeah.
But it's just not. Like it's literally the same as in like I don't know how to describe it, but I think the best way is imagine it like instead of climbing, you're pressing to open a door in a game with an animation. And like you go up to the door, and then you got to be lined up right. You press B to open the door, and then it will open it, and then you're on the other side. That's what all of the platforming is like. It's just you got to be in the exact right position, facing the right way. You press it. There's a slight pause, and then it plays out in animation. Like there's no, so like imagine if this game had like a momentum, like, and you were actually jumping and freedom. Like the platforming could have been so good, but they, like, I feel like it would have been fine if they didn't focus on it. But they design levels as if it's like a platforming thing, and like there's a challenge, and it's like why have you put 3 bars in a row? There's no point. Like I'm just, and there's times that I couldn't even see the handhold, so I'm just like swinging the analog stick around, just pressing A, and I'm sure he'll find it because there's literally no. Like,
you can't. I don't think I died climbing once. I think you can.
No, and then there's some bits later on where there's like fire on certain handholds, and you're meant to wait for them. But I realized they do so little damage. I just ignored them because I had an upgrade that made like my health build anyway.
Well, that's
so
the
I
other
just
thing about
it.
like they know that the combat is so clunky and so bad that they give you a massive shield and a massive health bar and put health kits everywhere because like they know you just literally run, you're getting shot at, and Monkey's just doing this, and like it's not damaging you because of your shield, like. It's like they knew that they were like, oh, we'll just have to give them loads of health because we don't know how to get people through this bit. Like hiding behind cover, I might be misremembering, but I don't think you can even crouch. He crouches on his own.
He automatically crouches when you're
but it's like you don't even have to. If you wanted to crouch and stay low, you couldn't because unless you're standing in the right place, you won't. It's just like and like man, that whole boss fight bit as well. Like I really want to talk about that with Dog.
Yeah.
Can we move on to that now? Have we talked enough about the gameplay?
Yeah, I mean, this is still, gameplay.
So there's like this dog that chases you, like giant mechanical dog. He chases you for like ages, like probably like 2.5 chapters maybe, or at least 2.5 like proper areas. And then when you go to fight him, you literally get on like your little skateboard hoverboard thing, and you just drive around like a circle, shooting at him until he falls over, and then you run up and hit him. And I remember thinking like, this thing has been chasing us for 2.5 levels, and it's like no one's ever killed anything like this before, and it is probably one of the worst boss fights I've ever done.
There's such big build up. Well, also there's a lot of the bosses, they'll be like you got to stun them and then hit them, but then there's nothing something like you'd stun them and you'd just whack them for ages, and it'll take a while for their health to go down, and then just as they're getting up, you just stun them again. So I just did like a whole boss fight, and it was like we just didn't move from this section. It was him getting up, I stun, and then I hit him, and then he's starting to get up, and I don't know, are they expecting me to run away and then chase him again? But I just keep stunning them. I'm like, how have they just not thought this is what everyone will do?
I mean, there was one quite cool bit, which was the theatre level.
Yeah.
That was cool because you had a spotlight. But like that was kind of the reason why it was cool. And that was it. Like,
it was a cool
raising and lowering the things wasn't really that fun. Like, there was actually, to be fair, there was quite a few clever puzzles where you'd have to go back on yourself and you wouldn't think that you would, but you did have to.
I quite enjoyed the puzzles in that bit. I don't think it was too bad. I was thinking you're selling it short. I think there was a few other standout moments. I think when the bit where she's in a car and then like she's driving and you're kind of like ducking behind the car. I thought that was good. And then that leads straight into that boss fight, which wasn't the best boss fight, but it was like quite a cool action bit into the boss fight. And then it was also like you're reaching the crash site, which is your goal. And then that's when you get the motorbike, and like I feel like that was quite like a nice little section of gameplay that didn't really have much platforming in it.
Yeah,
like
I think I actually died on that car bit quite a few times.
Oh, really?
Because I was just getting shot to bits by the... I remember something happened the first time around. I tried to do something like I tried to get cover against the car without realising the car was going to move. So then I was stuck behind it, like as in behind the car, so it was driving ahead of me and it didn't know where to catch up. So I was just getting shot to bits. And then I died again when it was like you have to change sides that you're running behind the car.
Yeah.
I died on that bit as well, but that's because I got ahead of the car and I ran down that side bit too early.
Yeah.
So then by the third time around, I was just like, okay, I just need to run exactly where I need to be.
I managed to get it first go, and it was quite satisfying when it's like that panic. You're like, I need to go on the other side, and like when it works out. But the problem with those, like those escape sequence type things is like it's great when it all works, and when it goes wrong and then you're doing it again.
It's the same as Uncharted, really. I mean, Uncharted's got more room for error, but it's exactly the same. Where like if you don't do it right, you just instantly die.
Yeah.
But there was also all of the like the things to do with Trip, your partner, and it was like you can't go too far away from her because the game will fail. But sometimes you can go too far away from her and it's fine. Or like sometimes she'll make this jump and it'll be all right, or sometimes you have to jump over and help her up. But you'd never know which one you're going to get until you do it. Or like you'll put her on your back and it'll be like, you can't carry Trip while you're scrambling. But then later on you'll do exactly that. And it's like, well, like it's like they have to find ways to limit what you're doing in order to get you to do exactly what they want, rather than kind of like, I mean, I'm no game designer, but like, inferring what you're meant to be doing. They kind of limit every other option so you can't possibly do it. So you do it the way they want you to, which I found to be constant.
They've designed exactly, they know what they want the player to do in that situation, and they're going to just take away any other possibilities that they do that, rather than building like an obstacle and having a bunch of mechanics that are open enough that, the player will get through it the way they'll get through it. It feels like the solution is to just, in just that overall setup, just to not limit it like so strongly, just to, not to care so much about them doing it some specific way. But like I did enjoy bits of it. I did enjoy. There were moments of the combat, especially when your staff. We didn't really mention it can shoot as well. Some of those bits are quite satisfying, and like when a few of the things are chained together. But like you mentioned, I think the camera is just a constant bully the whole game. So most of the game you have free camera control, you can turn it wherever you want, but then in certain areas it will just keep locking it off, and I felt like I'm constantly trying to fight it. Like there's so many times, and especially if you're platforming or something, it'll just lock the camera off, but you normally need to turn the camera to judge your perspective or to kind of look around. And then even in some of the boss fights, it keeps trying to like grab the camera, and I feel like I'm just literally battling with it, where it's trying to turn one way and I'm trying to turn it the other way, and that's throughout the whole game, and that drove me crazy. And then also, even if it's not doing that, it's just constantly just cutting away for like kind of like mini cutscenes. Like there's a bit where you're near the end, you're in like a giant mech, and then there's like these other little leech mechs jumping onto you, and this big scorpion mech, and it would be a really cool moment, but it's literally you do a tiny thing, and then it'll cut to like a cutscene of like 3 leeches going on and saying you now need to shoot them, and the camera will show this is where you shoot them, and then it'll do gameplay and you shoot them
with a crosshair appearing as well to be like.
But imagine if you're just going and you just see them smashing in front of you, and you just know to do it. And then the same with when the mech's climbing, it would be like you need to spray this gas on it and then shoot it, and every time it will cut out to a big cutscene. Imagine if it just let you play that whole time, and you're just looking up at this big mech and you see it climbing up without it constantly just taking it away and killing the pacing and the spectacle because it's cooler when you're a little guy looking up this mech. It's cool, but when they keep doing these really wide cutscenes, it just really just loses all the drama. And I think it just comes down to they just don't trust the player.
No. They don't trust you to do anything, to make a single decision in this game. They don't trust you to do it. The only thing you're allowed to do is upgrade your character. And even then, there's not that many options.
Yeah.
And also, I did find one thing that was like a constant annoyance for me was that the animations just like, each animation on their own were pretty good, but they don't link together properly.
Yeah.
So quite often you'll be climbing and you'll be just landing from a jump, and then you'll just snap to being halfway through your next jump. And I know that's like a constant problem for game developers, and like Uncharted they kind of go for the animation priority over the movement, and like some people prefer the animation priority over the movement, and some people prefer the other way. But like when you see it like this, and also this game came out a year after Uncharted 2, so
but I mean,
the budget's obviously a lot smaller.
Yeah, it's hard to compare. Naughty Dog are, there's only a few at that level of production with, Sony money behind them. But like you were saying, they normally go for like, it's generally like responsiveness or, looking good. And I don't have a preference either way. It depends on what the game is. But this seems to have the worst of both, because it always feels sluggish, and it's like jerky animation. And, like it is a smaller team, and I am like, it's hard because I am really rooting for them, and we've seen what they've like gone on to create, and, they're now part of Microsoft. But, like it is... I think they were maybe trying to bite off more than they could chew with what they were trying to do, because one of the big 100%. Marketing points was like the production value and the graphics and the spectacle and the story. And I think you can take loads of lovely bits and make an amazing looking trailer, but the act of playing it and seeing every aspect, and the times where it's, as you say, it's trying to zoom in to show you something and it's just zooming into like a blurry texture, like that happens regularly.
Yeah, and we were playing on the Series. I'm assuming you're playing on the Series X as well.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Obviously, had no kind of performance upgrades, but there was like the frame rate was pretty bad. And I'm not really a frame rate person. Like, I don't really care. Like, I played Uncharted No More Heroes 3, which ran at like 15 frames a second, and I was like, oh, that's okay. But like this game, I really noticed it dropping. Like in the intro when everything was exploding, I literally was like, oh no, this is what the whole game's going to be like.
But it wasn't even like it just felt bad throughout. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's obviously we're not playing on the original hardware, and I'm sure you could maybe get it running better on PC. But like, I went and watched like a bunch of old reviews, and they all talk about the performance. Apparently, especially on PS3, it's bad. But like, it doesn't look like it's like a stable even 30 FPS. Yeah, and it's been a while since I've played a game that isn't, at least targeting 60. And I'm also not like a frame rate snob, but it felt bad.
And it has pretty bad texture pop in as well, which like I haven't seen texture pop in for a really long time. Well, so it's a bit nostalgic.
Yeah, it was like Unreal Engine 3. Every game, even Gears of War had that. It's just Unreal Engine 3 on 360. They always had that.
The other thing, I had quite a lot of bugs. I had a bug where the facial animation stopped working. And the only way I could get it to work again was to quit the game and come back in. So like, it wasn't during the big cutscenes, because I think they're pre-rendered, but it was like when, it slightly zoom in and they'd say something, their faces would just be like the equivalent of a T-pose, but for your face, and their heads would be moving. And I also had, how the camera like just pulls away randomly during boss fights, like to show you something. I died during one of those pull-aways, so then it went back and Pigsy was just standing there like, it was one where he's going to shoot down the battery or something, and he was literally just like,
Oh, the
Because
boss
I
of
was
the
dead.
rhino boss fight.
Yeah. So I was just dead, and he was just standing there like.
That was one of
What
the
do I
times
do?
when I died through the camera when I was trying to. It kept. Oh, it was so annoying because I was just trying to do it, and it keeps yoinking the camera away at a time when it's like the boss is trying to charge you, and it's trying to go like, look up there, and I'm like, I'll find it in a minute. Let me do it. And I literally, because I was pushing the wrong direction, I died because of it, and I was so upset about that.
Yeah. And then Pigsy had that whole thing where like he throws you to the rhino and you don't know whether or not it's meant to be a joke or a prank or if he's actually trying to kill you. And then, you know, in the next scene, maybe 20 minutes later, he's like, oh, we're like a tight-knit group. We're a tight-knit family. It's like, mate, you literally just tried to kill him. Even if it was a joke, you almost killed him.
He throws him in, but then he's immediately like, okay, no, I need to save you. And like, let's come up with a plan. It's like, well, you didn't have the plan when you threw him in? Like, were you actually trying to kill him? Talk about characters. What did you think of Trip?
It's a bit of a nothing, really. She was okay. Like, I don't think revenge is a very good plot. Like, it's not something that really pulls me through a game, like, or a film or anything. If I know someone's just trying to get revenge, because I'm not like some angel of morality, but I think it's always pointless. Yeah. So when she
especially
like,
when she's getting revenge for like people you've never met, like
exactly.
Like her dad.
You're getting revenge on someone you've never seen. Like it was just like, well, and like I don't know. She wasn't offensive or bad by any means. She was pretty boring. But
I just sent you across a screenshot of our sidekicks tier list, and I thought, seeing as we hadn't played the game, I thought we'd do an honorary addition and add Trip on it wherever you think she belongs.
I think she needs to go C, because she's quite handy to have around, but her design's pretty boring and she's quite a boring character.
So on the same level as the companion cube from Portal.
Yes, the same level as the companion cube. Because she doesn't really. Also, she's got like one trick, which is the like decoy thing.
Yeah.
And that was pretty handy. It's a shame she couldn't really do anything else, isn't it?
Yeah, and also it felt like... I think the fact so basically you can bring up a radial wheel and there's a few things she can help you with, like she can heal you, she can do decoys, and then there's a few parts where there's like specific things, like she might be able to move a bit of machinery for you and stuff. But I think the way you're bringing up that menu and doing it, like I kind of didn't even really associate it with her. It just felt like it's a thing I'm activating, rather than it being like, oh, you're in trouble, let me help you. Or if it was like, you know, in other games, I say someone's grappling you and then they come and save you. Like, it feels like, oh, they saved me. But if it's like someone's grappling me and it's like hold L1, then press X to call them to help you. And then like, it feels like, oh, that's just a mechanic that I'm doing.
I also had her menu bug on, you know, the bit with the windmill?
Yes!
Which was a pretty cool puzzle. But then afterwards I was getting shot at and I was like, do the decoy. And it was like, okay, pull the lever. And I was like, what is happening? Like, we're nowhere near the windmill anymore.
Well, no, I had it bugged. I had it bugged where it wouldn't work on the windmill when I'm trying to move it and get into different positions. Like, I got to like basically there's a big windmill. You're trying to pull down the blades to make it spin, and you got to climb to different points. And it wouldn't allow me to like move and stop it in the way I thought, to the point where I thought I was doing something wrong. And it went off at 8, and then eventually I just did it, and I think it just wasn't stopping or something. And then eventually, after loads of time, it just did it, and I wasn't doing anything different. I
had just the menu was stuck. So when I was doing something else, the only options were to move the windmill.
The windmill was like 2 miles behind you. It was like, quick, turn it now.
It was literally like that. I was like, what's happening?
But yeah, no, I'm fine to put her in with C. So that's her with Kazooie from Banjo-Kazooie, Melina from Elden Ring, and Cortana as well. She's not B territory. To be fair, maybe even D, C or D. But
she wasn't like offensive by any means. She wasn't bad. She just was a bit of a nothing, really. Yeah,
she was just very good acting. And it was hard because it was like I think the writing was fine, especially for this era of game and the type of game that it was. But I'm not gonna, you asked me about the story in like a month and I'm gonna have forgotten most of it. It's only that it's so fresh that I can really, think through all of the different scenes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's almost like we were saying about Killer 7, that was like, oh, it got a 73 or whatever, and it's like, that's kind of the worst because it's kind of nothing. Like,
yeah.
It's not so bad that it's like, worth seeing, but it's also not so good that it's worth seeing either. So.
But this game reviewed very well. It was getting 8s and 9s when it came out. It reviewed extremely well. It seems like the last accurate sales figures was 730,000 cells, and that was from like the release the next year after it came out. So it probably had a good 5 or 6 months to sell that, which isn't like awful. I'm sure they at least covered its development and stuff, but they didn't want to make a sequel for it, obviously, and it's probably considered maybe not a full flop, but maybe a disappointment.
Did you see the interview with the director about the sequel?
Yeah, there was an interview in 2017 or something where I think, didn't he mention about Horizon?
He was like, lunch? It's too similar to Horizon, so we can't do it anymore.
Yeah, it is. The world, the post-apocalyptic, but overgrown and beautiful, big mech robots. It is very similar, isn't it?
And we've obviously been absolutely ragging on this game for 41 minutes now, but you can see what they were going for, and I think it does have its heart in the right place, and it was trying to do something cool. But even I know you've got to work within your own limitations. And you can't force something like this, because this is what happens. It just ends up being a mess. You end up being the jack of all trades, master of none, as they say. So almost every element of it fails pretty much out the gate.
Yeah.
Whereas Hellblade was way more concentrated, and I think Hellblade's much, much better than this.
I feel like this was part of their ramp up, because they had Heavenly Sword before this, which was a PlayStation 3 exclusive, and was apparently fine. But just a bit, I don't know, almost a bit bland, I guess. Supposedly, I never played it. This is just from what I heard. And then this seemed to be a bit more interesting and more ambitious. And then they had DMC, which, music aside, I think people that really like it just really like it, and it was a much more competent game. I know, obviously, it upset some old school Devil May Cry fans because they did their own twist on the character. And then I think it was just Hellblade straight after that, right? Am I forgetting anything?
Well, Kung Fu Chaos.
Yeah, I skipped Kung Fu Chaos. I was up for Heavenly Sword. So I think this was part of their learning process, part of their journey. As a developer. And, and I think something interesting came out of it. Speaking of interesting, what did you think of the ending? Little pre-warning here, we will spoil this game if any of you were tempted to play it. Do you want to kind of just talk through it first?
So you're in your big robot, and you're going towards the big enemy, who's called Pyramid, and Pigsy, probably the best character in the game, unfortunately dies, so that's done.
Yeah, he sacrifices himself. So you liked Pigsy way more than me. I didn't find him very funny, and I didn't like his sleaziness. And I actually think I preferred it before he was in. I think I was the opposite from you.
Okay. I don't like any of them. I like him slightly more. I still don't like him. So you're on your way there to this big bad, and then when you get there, you break in. I can't remember how you break in. You get in somehow, and there's all these hundreds of people who are enslaved, like the title of the game, and they're all just standing there with headsets on, and it's super futuristic white, looks like an Apple store, and then you see the main baddie, and he's basically oh, I enslaved all these people because I'm giving them a VR experience that is the old world. And then he's my world, they have families and children, and your world has mechs. And it's mate, they're your mechs. You made those mechs. That's why there's mechs there. They're yours. And then he's put this mask on and you'll see what they have. And then Monkey puts the mask on, and then something happens. I can't remember what happens exactly, but Trip pulls you out of it. And then I think they free everyone.
Where she kills the guy, doesn't she?
Right, yeah. To be honest with you, I was watching the last cutscene and my phone went off, and I looked at it, and when I looked up, it had finished. That's how uninvested I was.
She starts ripping out all of his tentacles, his feeding tubes or whatever they are.
But the whole time, there's just a giant cinema screen with Andy Serkis's face on, and he's not wearing makeup. He's not even wearing a costume. He's just got a black t-shirt on, and he's hello, I'm making memories for the rest of the world.
I mean,
Like,
he's an actor, and it's. I mean,
I know,
I
but
guess
he's not even dressed. He doesn't even look like a villain. He doesn't look like anyone. He just looks like a guy
and
in
also
a t-shirt.
once again, it's it's camera footage. It's real footage of him.
Yeah.
Whereas all of the other characters are animated and of the graphics quality of their day.
Yeah.
And like, why wasn't it a big animated Andy Serkis?
He's not even filmed or anywhere that looks like where you're standing.
Yeah.
He's just got like a skyline behind him that could be anywhere. And it looked like someone filmed it on their phone and then sent it to them.
You know, I just thought you could make a great YouTube edit of that being like Mark Zuckerberg and it being the metaverse. You could just take real footage of him and just put it up there.
We could put our podcast episode over it.
This is where everyone wants to be.
yeah.
Inside the bonus points.
So it was like pretty rubbish. Like, it was a twist I didn't see coming, but I also didn't care. So I was like, it's just completely stupid. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And then as soon as the game ended, I turned it off and uninstalled it.
I quite liked it just because it was entertaining because of how silly it was. Like, so I kind of just enjoyed it because of that. Like I wouldn't defend it or say it's great or whatever, but like, it's interesting. Like, it made, like, it got my attention. I was like, okay, what's this then?
Well, the fact that he made the robots makes the whole thing again feel like it's unearned. Like, he made the mechs, so why would he be saving people from the mechs? Like, if you just don't make them, just stop making them.
Well, I think the world had gone wrong. I don't think the mechs destroyed the world. I think the world had gone wrong and it was horrible. And then he's like, oh, I'm going to make mechs to bring people here so they can live in this happy world. Basically live in the Matrix rather than living in this horrible world. That's why. I don't think it's like, oh, we're living in the virtual world to escape the mechs. It's saying that, this is a way to bring people here, I guess, rather than just asking, do they want to? Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense. Let's not analyze this one too deeply.
And also, when you look at, there's a bit of the game where you see a pyramid and it flashes up a real picture of a pyramid, and I was like, I know what a pyramid is. Like, you reads the word pyramid and an actual picture of a pyramid. Like,
and then at the end, Trip's like, did I do the right thing? And then we're like, I don't know. And then the credits roll. I mean, that's basically it.
Yeah, I don't think they could make another one even if they wanted to. I don't know where you'd go from there. You'd have to do a completely different story, characters. Maybe Monkey could be like Mad Max. Maybe like he goes and helps someone else.
Yeah, I mean, them going off on their little motorbike and having adventures, I guess. What happens is someone else takes control of the mechs and uses them for more evil reasons. I don't know. They could come up with something.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah. Do you want to put this on the list?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay then, so this is a landmark moment for the podcast because this is going to be our 20th game on the list. We will have a top 20. Enslaved is guaranteed to be in the top 20. This is a top 20 game, guaranteed.
Wow, big moves for Enslaved. It's absolutely buzzing about that. Top 20.
We'll see for how long, judging by your thoughts on it. I was actually surprised. I was talking to you before the podcast and I was saying that sometimes during like our conversation I change my mind. Like I might be thinking, it'd probably be, top quarter or bottom or whatever, near the middle. And I think I was more positive to this right before we started recording. And I think just kind of talking about the shortcomings. I just think the things that you didn't like I just loved the world. I loved the fact it was pretty. I loved the fact it was just quite old school, like video game. Like, yeah,
collecting the coins or whatever the red things was like Jack and Daxter vibes. But like, I don't think it was pretty by any means. Like, it was like difficult to look at.
Yeah, it was just
so
too jaggedy
sharp and bright. It was like,
yeah. I feel like there would I bet there was amazing concept art for this.
Yeah, definitely.
But they just couldn't quite do it. But I feel like I was kind of just almost tricking myself into thinking that I was playing through the trailer version of this game.
The thing is like they've made good games. Like I don't hate this developer. I'm not an idiot. Like this game is just not very good. Like Hellblade by them, I really like, and it's very much like they needed to work within their constraints and they didn't.
Yeah,
and like that's where it went wrong. I can see what they were trying to do, but like a massive business like making a video game and you can't work within your own constraints, then like this is what happens, and it's a shame, but that's the reality.
I'm sure they thought that they they were. Like, I think it's very easy to say if we're doing a project, we know exactly what like our limits in terms of time and everything is. But, you know, when you're managing, I don't know, I'm just going to pick a number, like a team of 80 people, say, making this. I think it's made, and, you know, we've just made Heavenly Sword, you know, that went well. Now let's kind of do this and kind of just try and step it up a little bit. But I think maybe it's like what I was talking about earlier. It was like, this was just part of their learning curve, and they had to, you know, in order to make a game like Hellblade, maybe they needed to make a game like this first in order to learn those skills and learn their limitations, because Hellblade is a more, I don't know, maybe more simple game isn't fair, but it's a, you know, it's a smaller scale game, wouldn't you say, in terms of environments and story?
And it's much better because of it, you know? Much better because of it. So, yeah, which is a shame, because I was really looking forward to this as well, so...
Yeah. Well, you go first then. So whereabouts on the list are you thinking it should belong?
I think, in all honesty, I would put the game here, between Harry Potter and Tyler Tasmanian Tiger.
You would put it under Harry Potter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is bottom 3 here. So it's Harry Potter, Ollie suggesting it to be Enslaved Odyssey to the west, and then the Tasmanian Tiger at the bottom. What was better about Harry Potter than this?
I feel like Harry Potter was more fun to talk about, but they're equally not what I'm after in a video game at all. But I had more fun reminiscing about Harry Potter than... But that's also the license is better. We're not
rating of how good of a podcast episode did the games make. We're talking about how good is the game.
Down the bottom, they're all getting so close together down the bottom. They're all a blur. I mean, I was even thinking maybe even below Ty. This game just brought me absolutely no joy. And
really?
It has, like, its redeeming features bring it up from, like, maybe a 3 out of 10 to a 5. And that's for about 10 minutes, and then it drops straight back down again. As soon as you get to the ending, it just goes... So,
yeah. I feel like it was a game where... Because, as I said, it got great reviews at the time, and there is, like, a following that, you know, are always talking about how underrated this game is. And I think a lot of that was because of the story and, like, the interesting setting. And I think the problem is that game stories have progressed since then, and that might have been like, compared to other games of its time, it's like, oh my god, is it actually competent writing and acting and like and motion capture as well, and facial animation, which wasn't the norm back then. It now kind of is for, like, you know, games in that space. And so its thing that was standout isn't a standout anymore, and the rest is so marred by, you know, tech problems and design problems that
the whole like, the limiting thing was just too much. The way it limits you, and everything you do, you are always limited to run down a certain path. And it's like, you got to run down this path or you'll get hit by a mine. Like, they literally did everything they could to stop you choosing what to do.
And just to make it clear, when we say about, like, the jumping, because from the footage it's hard to realize why it's different. Like, you don't have a jump button. There is, but it will only do it when you're like, if you press jump and there's nothing there, you can't jump down. So there'll be a ledge that you need to jump down, and you're going to do it, and you're just like, how many times did you roll at the edge of a ledge wanting to jump down?
Yeah, and he's like, ooh, and it's like, you're not even a foot off the floor, and then if you move slightly to the left, it'll work.
Yeah.
And while that's happening, your teammate's getting killed, and you're like trying to get over there, and you can't get down off his ledge.
Like, it might as well be like, get on a ladder and get off the like it's so like pointless. It feels like why am I being made to make this a cutscene if you're not going to let me do it? Like, it's so restrictive. But like it's better than Harry Potter. Like Harry Potter was pretty awful.
Yeah, it was awful. It was, but I mean, I did like. Do you remember we talked about Harry Potter? And I was like, the school setting is quite good.
Yeah. And like
going to classes and
as well.
Yeah,
the music was
and
good.
Even though the classes were stupid, and it was every single class was like crawl through this hole in the wall, and then you could collect something.
But that was like fun in its own way because of how silly it was.
It was fun in a way that makes it 18th on the list. Let's put it that way.
So there are moments in the combat where it would be like. You know, the enemies are coming at you, and it's got a shield, so I'm going to shoot it with the zap thing, and then I'm going to beat it up, and then the other one can't. This one's got a timer, so I'm going to zap them to freeze them while I've hit this bomb one, then I can throw the bomb one into them. Like, there are like little glimpses of what it could be in the middle, and Harry Potter never had that. Like Harry Potter never
true.
had one moment of being like good. It was
true.
all even like average to bad throughout. But it was like a cool setting with good music and like had a few so funny it's bad. Whereas this had like some actual good bits. And like you were talking a bit about the fish scene. So like with that bit, there's like you find a fish tank and basically it's a fish has survived for all these years by itself just because the sunlight has fed the algae and the fish has eaten the algae. Yeah. And then they say like, oh, if this little fish could like survive, maybe we have a chance. And then it immediately gets smashed by like a giant robot instead of a boss fight. And I'm like, that's like a decent like little metaphor, maybe not hugely subtle, but Harry Potter had like nothing close to that.
No, it didn't at all. But also during that scene, the whole time I was thinking like, Monkey, you have been literally enslaved by this woman and you're giving her the time of day to talk about fish. I'd be like, what, come with me or I'm going to kill you and kill myself. Like, because you've literally taken me prisoner and now you're just talking to me about fish. Like I
think the game knows that. No, though, like I think, like you said, I think it happens too fast. But I think what I said stands up. Where because there's a bit where she's like talking about her family and her home, and then she's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to stay? And he's just sort of like, I don't know. I don't know what my life is now. Like, and then she's given him purpose. And I think the turnaround is jarringly quick from I'm going to rip your neck off or whatever, to then suddenly like, yeah, I'll do anything for you. Like, despite the headband, it's too quick.
The perfect example of how quick things turn around is I had a checkpoint. So I saw it quite a few times, but there was the Trip is like, my name's Trip. What do people call you? And he's like, I don't have a name. I'm just like a wandering vagrant. And she's like, oh, but if you want me to call you something, what would I call you? And he goes, some people call me Monkey. It's like, so you do have a name. And you just said it straight off. She just had to ask twice and you told her what your name was. Like, that's what the game does all the time. It's like, try to do one thing that just instantly flips and goes the other way. And like, the characters' motivations are like that as well. And their like feelings towards each other are like that. And it just makes the whole thing like feel very unearned. And the fish scene is another example of that, where it's like just completely unearned and way too fast. It probably could have done with about 80% less emotional moments. They probably would have hit a lot better.
Can I have a counter argument in terms of directly for the comparison with Harry? Like everything you're saying, right? Like, I don't agree with disagree with anything you're saying.
Yeah.
But the problem with this is there's like sometimes forced or like too rapid character development and unearned character development compared to Harry Potter, where I mean, what? There isn't any. Like there's not even
Ron's tired
at it. Like they're not. There isn't any characters in Harry Potter, is there?
Yeah,
it's just faces and voices. Like
okay, I mean that's fine if you want to argue about. I mean it's still bottom 3. I mean I'm not going to argue much down at that.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue it above Max Payne 3. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
But like, do you like? Are you just relenting, or do you like? Have I persuaded you?
When I was playing it, I was like, this is below tie. But then towards the end, when it started to pick up a bit, I was like, okay, it's a bit better than I thought. But then the ending completely tanked the entire thing back down again. So like, if it's better than a licensed PS2 game, like to me, Harry Potter and tie are kind of neck and neck anyway. So if you want to go above Harry Potter, that's fine by me. It's all the bottom as far as I'm concerned.
Like some of those, like you said, the theatre scene, some of the bits of like some of the puzzle stuff's like pretty clever. Like the one where like you're moving like that tram thing around, and they all move at the same speed. And like the thing that there were, I think those were probably the best moments of those puzzle bits. And I think the fact that it has like, it's got decent music. Like I liked the art more than you. Like the performances, are decent. It's just it needed maybe a more experienced design team or more time or whatever it is. You know what? I bet if they're given a choice, would they like you to have like Mirror's Edge parkour like at your fingertip? I'm sure they'd say, we'd love that. How much more difficult would that to be? Like it's very low risk the way they designed it because like the player can't really get wrong or get stuck and they don't need to like balance the jumps because they're always going to make it. So it's like they did the easy route and it the gameplay suffered because of it. Maybe that was just a time and budget, constraint. They're smarter than us for game design. I'm sure they realize what they were making, and maybe that's just what they could do. But I think what they came out with is better than Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets for PlayStation 2.
Okay, all right. There was even some jumps though, because obviously the handholds flash, but the ledges don't. So there'd be some jumps that'd be like, "There's no way I'm ever going to make that." And you do it, and you'd be like, like he'd like zoom over and land in there. You'd be like, okay, well, I didn't know that was the right way to go because it wasn't flashing and it was so far away. The previous jump that was closer than that I couldn't make. So I just figured you couldn't do it.
I mean, the fact that like the levels were so like busy with detail that they had to make the handheld flash, and I still regularly couldn't see them. Like that's it. Like they don't need to always go too far in terms of like white or like yellow paint or whatever. But like I feel like the problem with it is that it's modern enough that we're comparing it to all of the games that we've played since. Yeah. But then no, because it came out after Uncharted 2, so maybe not.
A year after,
maybe scrap that.
But I know that it's because of budgets and teams and that, but it still came out after Uncharted.
Yeah. I feel like Uncharted 2 maybe changed the industry and influenced so many, and obviously these were being developed in tandem. Like, Enslaved's initial design wasn't based, didn't have the reference material of Uncharted 2. Maybe if it was started development afterwards, they'd be like, oh yeah, this is how you do that. And to be fair, I do have problems with Uncharted climbing in the same regard, in terms of it often feels like there's no danger at all, and it is too linear. I feel like Uncharted 4 was the first one where they kind of added gameplay to it with like the hook and stuff. But yeah, that's a different game. So yeah, do you want to read out maybe just kind of like the final 5 of our top 20?
Okay, so it's right down at the bottom, I'm afraid, Enslaved fans. But we've got 16's Onimusha Warlords, 17 is Max Payne 3, 18 is Enslaved, 19 is Harry Potter, and 20 is Ty, the Tasmanian Tiger, which remains at the bottom for now.
For now.
But was there something you said? So I saw you at the weekend, and you said something about Killer 7, and I'm wondering if there was any movement on your.
Oh no! I said there was a movement I wanted to make. It's not okay. Killer 7 though.
Oh, I thought you were saying. I think Killer 7. You're like, I think with time it might.
No, it's Undertale.
Yeah,
I think Undertale's too low.
It's too low.
Yeah,
but we talked about it and we
Like,
agreed.
I know we did at the time, but like I think so much of that was like based on your experience. Mm-hmm. But like I'm doing it on like my experience and the potential experience, and it's like it's just such an interesting game. And then sort of some of the conversations you've said about like, oh, I can't believe you wanted to put like Halo Infinite above Killer 7, and like Halo Infinite is like this, big Microsoft franchise, loads of sequels and stuff. And I know Mr. Driller isn't Halo, but like how many Mr. Driller games were there before the one that we chose? Like Undertale is such a cool, interesting, it's such an us game. And I feel like you would appreciate it even if you didn't have a great time with it. You would still allow it to go higher.
No, you're right. Like when we did Killer 7, I said Undertale does much the same thing, but it does a lot better than Killer 7 does it. And I love Killer 7. I tell you this, what the move that I'd be willing to make on this, I would swap Undertale and Ooblets. Because Ooblets needs to come down.
I don't want Ooblets under Mr. Driller.
Well, that's your option.
Well, okay. This isn't a discussion. This
well, it is. I didn't want to move it at all. So I said, okay, I'll move it if you do this.
What about Undertale above Ooblets and Mr. Driller?
No, because then I'm like, then Mr. Driller above Ooblets, and then we're just back to my original.
I really feel Undertale needs to be high now, because I also feel like we're not even like we haven't even scratched the surface with Undertale for what we've done. And I know it's kind of weird to judge it on something I haven't experienced, but I just know there's so much like hidden lore and just thought into like every tiny thing. And then like on the surface, it's like this super like basic like design, and the amount that's done with just like words and great music is basically and then the most limited visual art style I think of basically any big modern game. and the fact that it's basically made by one person, like I feel like we got to give it its due.
Yeah, so let's swap it with Ooblets.
Okay, so swap Undertale with Ooblets. Do that now, and then we'll look at Mr. Driller and Ooblets compared to each other, because we haven't they haven't faced off directly ever.
In a battle for the ages, it's
Yeah.
Mr. Driller versus Ooblets.
So I got into Ooblets more than you. Like I progressed further, and I spent a lot more time decorating my house and like building up my plantation with my all my Ooblets were, and that is when I got really into it. Was when I was designing the layout of my farm and my house, and I was making huge amounts of money, and being able to kind of just do what I want rather than that early game progression is when I got really into it. And it's a trick that many games do, like many of those sort of kind of farming sim games or any kind of those sort of management sim games. It's just satisfying to design a thing and to get bigger and bigger rewards. It was that, but then also in like a lovely style, like great graphics and just the fun silliness of like the Ooblets themselves. I just found like there was more to get excited about than Mr. Driller, which is just like a faultless, basically, arcade game.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you've just said it in one. It's faultless.
Yeah, well, it's the difference.
The things that you liked about Ooblets are like, oh, I like decorating my house and making a farm. That's got nothing to do with the Ooblets, is it?
No, and I didn't like
You're not
the
collecting
dance-offs.
them or battling them. Like the game's named after them.
Can
You basically like Stardew Valley.
Can I be honest? When I was like saying about that, like my mind suddenly went to the dance battles, and I was like, I just won't mention it in there.
Yeah.
I won't bring that up.
You basically like Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing, and
But
Ooblets is the closest game we have to that at the moment.
But I like the way Ooblets do Stardew Valley more than Stardew Valley, and I put a lot of time into Stardew. Like I think Stardew Valley is too fiddly for my like for the amount that I'm going to play a game. Like I prefer Ooblets version. It's the right level of complexity and fun and silliness. And like the Ooblets are part of it because they're the ones doing the farming and they're in their little houses, and then you stick your head into to them and they're all in there. Like the Ooblets are part of that.
Yeah.
And they've continued to update it. But I think it's Ooblets is trying to do more, but Mr. Driller is just doing what it does better than what Ooblets is doing.
Exactly, and that's fine. That's fine by me. That's where it sits. Like, look at the top 5 now. It's like even Prey I could see, which I'm not like. I liked Prey, don't get me wrong, but I didn't like it as much as you. But even then, I'm like, the top 5 games on this list I could probably recommend to anyone. Like, they are bangers. These are all good games. Prey I'd probably say was 5th rather than 2nd, but they're all good. But I wouldn't be like, oh man, if you played like Disco Elysium, Last of Us, Doom, and Ooblets, I'd be like, it's this little game that's unfinished that like is fine.
It's finished. 1.0 is gone.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
Is it because of the name? Is it because it's called Ooblets?
No.
When you're saying about this list of names, does Ooblets sound too like silly to be taken as a great game?
No, I don't think it's that. It's just, I just thought it was okay. There's so many games like Ooblets, isn't there? There's so many of these like cute farming games.
Yeah.
Ooblets is just the latest in a long line of that.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's the best one.
True, they're coming thick and fast, and I guess I just don't play many of those games, and so maybe this is just the one that really grabbed me because I don't play many, but I was playing it for the podcast because a guest suggested it, and it just turns out I like those games, and maybe I should play more of them, but then also maybe I shouldn't because they take a little time and they stop you playing other things. But I'm happier with this list as it is now than as it was before.
Okay, and there's absolutely no movement on Killer 7 though.
No, not up.
Okay.
Actually, all down. It's exactly where I want it. It's a top 10 game.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't want it above Driver. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. I'm sure Suda51 would be very happy with where it is, to be fair. Like someone played it.
Yeah, it's on a list. Any other movings or shuffles while we're looking at it?
No, but it's difficult to have an argument for a game because as soon as you apply that argument to every other game on the list, sometimes it falls apart. Like, not saying there's anything wrong with what you said about Untitled, that we've only just scratched the surface, but we did only play 1% of World of Warcraft, and we were like, yeah, it goes down there. But like, again, we didn't really we didn't really play it, did we? We played a little bit of it.
Oh, absolutely. But like, I have, without a doubt, I know that if I played more, it wouldn't like the core of the game. And from speaking to Jimmy about like, how are you playing this game when you're playing it now after, probably playing it for several hundred hours? And he's like, I just click on the quest, don't even read like the brief summary, just see what I need to do and then just going off to do it. And I'm like, okay, I would have no fun with that. Like it ain't for me.
Yeah, that's very true.
And also for World of Warcraft, it's as high as it is, even though it's not very high, because I can see how great of a game it is. But it's just so not for me. And this is our list. We put it where we want. This is our these aren't the list of the best games. It's the list of our favorite games. And so we can acknowledge that. Even Max Payne 3, I can say, like it's a very good game. It just wasn't for me. Like I didn't like the shooting, the story stuff. I thought was really great style, but I just didn't. I just felt it had no substance and was just cool rather than good.
Yeah. Well, at least it was cool though. I mean, Enslaved didn't even have that, did it?
No, it didn't. Right. So do you want to kind of mention some of the games we got coming up? We got quite a long list. I think this is as ahead as we've been. So you have no excuses to not play these games yourself. So you can send in some questions for us and join in the conversation, especially as a lot of these games are either very cheap or just available on Game Pass or other services.
So next time we have The Last of Us 2, which I've already started. Got ahead on that because I heard it's pretty long.
With a guest?
With a guest. And then we have Beginner's Guide, which is only an hour and a half long, we found out. So if you do want to play it, that's an easy one to play. It's a PC game. Then we've got Death Stranding, which is going to be towards the end of September. And then
which is available, that's a... isn't that a PlayStation Plus like Essentials, like one of the collection or whatever it is? Isn't that available there?
I'm not sure what's on that list. It might be.
Yeah, maybe it's not, but I feel like there's a chance it is. If not, I think that would be pretty cheap. But it's a long one, so if you're going to do that, get started early.
Yeah. And then we got Yoshi's Island with a guest, and that's on your Nintendo Switch Online, if you've got that. Do you want me to carry on or not?
Let's leave it there for now, if that's as far as we've gone before. Just because we realize we want to try and do more like current releases. We've been looking back a lot, but we always plan so far ahead that we've kind of missed that. But then again, there's not been many big games released over the last few months, or big games really.
Well, I guess Last of Us 2 is only a year old, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, like what we did with Halo, where we did the podcast like right after it came out. Maybe we'll try and do that a little bit more. To kind of be, so we can chat about games where like a million things haven't been told about them before and kind of be part of that. But we'll see. We do really listen to your suggestions, by the way. It does sway us. We were chatting about that today. There's a game that has been very heavily recommended that we're talking about maybe doing in the future. So feel free to leave comments down below with any suggestions for future games. Or if you have any thoughts about what we've said about Enslaved, maybe Enslaved is one of your favourite games, tell us why we're wrong in the comments. Be respectful. We do love to hear all of your different opinions.
Yeah, nice one. That was a very nice way of putting that. I'm sorry if Enslaved is your favourite game, but also, I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about, so... anything else you want to mention? Anything interesting that's coming up? Well, we're on Twitch now, which seems to have absolutely flown out the gate. We've had loads of people following on there, and like talking in the chat and stuff like that. It's really cool. I've also set up Twitch alerts, so if you've watched before and they weren't there, they'll be there next time, which is cool. I just finished Cuphead on there, the DLC. Couldn't finish the main game because it's too hard. I did try though. We've also got Best of Threes returning next week, so we had a week off, but they're coming back.
And then also for the Cuphead, we're going to be putting the probably all of them, the Twitch VODs on YouTube as well. We don't think they're going to send to subscribers. Did you set it up like that? Yeah,
so I've done the first ones. The first one went up and that went to subscribers because I thought people might want to know something new going on. Second one's up now, and the third one is processing as we speak. So
okay, brilliant. And Ollie's been doing pretty good at that with the bosses. So if you want to see some of the new animations if you're not good enough to do Cuphead, as I'm probably a bit too scared. If you want to see someone competently doing it with commentary, good place to do it. And apart from that is everything going on with the bonus points at the moment. As we say, the next one is going to be The Last of Us 2. You do not want to miss that one. There is going to be a lot to talk about in that game. I don't think there's a world where the top 5 of the list isn't going to be altered yet again. So, I'm expecting a big, fun debate, and it's going to be a really fun guest joining us there who is going to have a very unique perspective on this game. I won't say any more. It's just something to look forward to. Thank you so much for joining me, Ollie. Great points, as always.
Thank you, mate. This was good. I was a bit worried we'd be dogpiling on it. It wouldn't be fun, but it was actually fun, so...
yeah, and I don't regret playing the game. I think, I'm glad, like, this has always been a game that's been on my backlog for years and years, basically since it came out. And now I know. I won't be returning to it, but I had I had an interesting time. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Cheers, bye.